Hi there, higher running coach and Hoka athlete Sage Kande here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about training by volume in terms of time versus my preferred way, usually, distance. So time versus distance, and this, derived from my last training talk talking about consistent higher weekly mileage. Of course, I was giving you numbers, right? 50 miles a week, 80 kilometers per week versus like 50K per week or 30 miles a week about. And people are like, well, why don't you just go by time? And that's a good question. And, truth be told, Sandy and I have created a lot of training plans over the years and, coached some athletes, mainly I'd say for, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, in my experience with ultra trail running, time is usually more based because we don't know the climbing of a certain route, or technicality with trails could, you could be going up a mountain, it could take an hour to go 2 miles or less than 3 kilometers, right? If the trail's technical, if the weather conditions change, you're all over the place. You might have an aid station that's 5 kilometers away and you don't know how long it's going to take you there. So your fueling strategy, your race goals, it's all very time-based. I just want to finish this ultra. The distances in ultras aren't even exactly round numbers usually, but if you're looking for a PR and a very specific time goal, like a Boston qualifying marathon, a sub 3 hour marathon, we know that marathon distance is standard. It's 26.2 miles, 42.2 kilometers, right? So, and this is also taking into account most marathon road courses are on roads, uniform, flattish surface. Some are very hilly, but we're going to say a flat marathon course, relatively flat marathon course, good pavement, good road conditions, near sea level, right? We're not talking about some crazy high altitude mountain marathon, right? So in those dynamics, as well as in track running, 5K, 10K, 1500 meters, half marathon races, road and track races, I think usually I like to think in terms of writing my training plans and coaching people, I go more by the work output of distance. Now, bear with me here. If you're running at a steady pace, let's say you're running 6-minute mile pace or 4-minute per kilometer pace on a flat road, fast pace, like 2:36 marathon pace, time and the distance that you cover correlate directly, right? If you're running a constant pace, a steady pace, time and distance go together. They correlate, right? There shouldn't be any, unless you hit the wall and majorly slow down, your time is very predictable, right? You're just multiplying by 6 to get how many minutes it's going to take you to run 26.2 miles. So, going by a fueling video I did, and I could do a whole separate video just on taking gels during a marathon, I said, every 4 to 6 miles or every 5 to 6 miles, every 8 kilometers in a marathon race, a lot of people should probably take a gel. And some people are like, oh no, I go by time. I want to do it every 30 or 45 minutes. But if you're running that steady, let's say that steady 6-minute mile pace, you are going 5 miles or 8K in 30 minutes. And, it scales back even if you're going at a much slower pace because the relative intensity comes down, right? So the work output is what I look at, and that's why I go by distance, and that's why I consider it with workouts and training. Not to say that we don't do some fartlek or timed interval workouts, or for beginner runners, we're like walk a minute, try to jog a minute, build up running 20 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day when you start off, right? Some long runs will be run 2 hours, see what you could do type of deal, right? But if we look at the science of work output and body displacement, so to speak, we find that, in the marathon, it's very standard that runners of all levels, all shapes and sizes, all pace ranges, generally will hit the wall around a very similar distance in the race, right? It's, usually between, if you have a really bad day, it might be 16 miles, but it could be 18 miles, 20 miles, what's that in kilometers, like, 30K mark in a marathon. People really start running low on glycogen and really hit that wall hard, especially if they went out too fast or they're not taking in enough gels, or they didn't train correctly. So, that's a constant wall type of area, and it doesn't matter if you got there in 2 hours or you got there in 3 or 4 hours, you're hitting the wall at that point in the marathon. And it's because the work output of moving your body that distance, that magical distance, is what really matters. So you could get into all sorts of science, but we look at work output, body displacement, force applied to move your body a certain distance. Then we look at what I like to really get into is power output. Now, power is, you're taking the time into consideration now. So it's work over time is power. So the power output think of like the power Kipchoge's generating running, a 2-flat marathon, 159 project. It's a lot of power, even though he's a relatively lightweight and very efficient runner, obviously. He's got all the super shoes. He's taking his Morton hydro gel, or, every 15 minutes, 14 minutes. Well, he's covering a 5K in 14 minutes, right? He's basically running my 5K PR 8 times in a row. So over that. So, it's a high work output. Someone else might be running a 4-hour marathon or a 5-hour marathon. Relative power is probably a lot lower, even if they have a difference in body weight. Now, we think of cycling, it's not just wattage, it's not just the power, oh, he was spinning, 400 watts or, spiked up to 600 watts on this push on the climb. Power meters on bikes are very accurate. Power in running, not so much, but the concept's the same of watts. It's not just the sheer wattage, it's watts per kilo is the important thing you're looking at. So what is the relative work output? What is the relative power output? Watts per kilo is really the gold standard you're getting at. That's who's pulling away on the climb, right? That's who's going to make a break in the peloton. I don't know much about cycling, but I like the physics. I like talking about energy. So, watts per kilo, it's a relative threshold. It's going to be maybe relative to what you could withstand, right? If you're at a really high heart rate, you can only sustain that for so long. So getting away from that, back to the sheer distance, we're all out there, we're all trying to cover 26.2 miles in a marathon, 42.2K. How we get there in training really matters. And this goes back to my talk on consistent higher mileage or volume. You did the work. You have to callus the leg muscles and tendons to the pounding of pavement to go that long. And obviously, beginners will be running much less. You could finish a marathon on running 3 days a week, 20 miles a week, 32K a week, but it's usually probably not ideal. It's ideal, if you just want to finish, but if you want to reach your full potential, a lot of times people need to run more distance. Now, they go up in distance, they're also training more in terms of time. I get that, but it's more, I'm thinking of, they need to run their glycogen low in a long run. Should they do a hard 16-mile long run, or at the level where they could handle a 20-mile long run without getting injured? And a lot of times that's reflected on what your weekly mileage is, not how much time you spent doing it. And there's certain diminishing returns and injury risk, obviously, with running for super long time at a lower intensity versus running for a shorter amount of time at a higher intensity, right? With the thresholds and trying to, get a lot of tension in your muscles and build up that muscular strength and durability. But the work output is still there, and the work is determined by the distance covered. Power is determined by the work you do over time. So that's just kind of my little rant on that. And obviously, with people's schedules, again, with trail runners, we go by time a lot because we don't know how long a mountain climb is going to take you or how technical the trails are. Likewise, we could be doing a lot of hill workouts and we'll do a 3-minute interval VO2 max, right? Or 1-minute hill climb, high intensity, 20-second strides. We do go by time a lot. But a lot of our higher running training plans and a lot of the coaching I do is based on mileage, especially for those road runners doing more flat road runs and track runs and things like that, where we could measure these things very accurately. So, cross training, great to go by time. Obviously, what you do on a bike or in the swimming pool is a lot different from running. The heart and lungs don't know the difference, though. If you were at a certain heart rate for 60 minutes, The heart and lungs don't know what's going on. You get those aerobic benefits, but the skeletal muscular system sure knows if you were pounding the pavement or you were smoothly gliding along cross-country skiing or something like that. You're working different muscles, different motor patterns. So it is a lot different. And I realize, you got busy schedules. If you limit your time, you say, because of work, family obligations, travel, I only have, this hour-long lunch break to run, or I have an hour or 30 minutes before work, I got to sneak in a run. You're going to do what you can in the time you have to do it, to quote to paraphrase my AP US English teacher in high school. Do what you can with the time you have. But the work output is still there, and I think this will go into my next talk, which will be about more fueling for marathon or half marathon target races where, people usually just go by a time constraint, where I actually argue the other point is you should go more by the distance covered in a flat race. So, think of the Kipchoge example. He's taking a gel every 14, 15 minutes during his sub 2 attempt. Do most people really need to take a gel every 14 or 15 minutes during their marathon race? Probably not. You'd have to carry quite a few if you're running over 2 hours. So food for thought there. Anyway, follow along for more running tips on here. I realize this is a more abstract and complicated training talk. We got beginner running tips coming your way, as well as tips for ultra runners, trail runners, any service, any distance. I've experienced a lot of races around the world in my time being a sponsored runner, as well as coached a lot of people at all levels, age ranges. So definitely subscribe. Stay tuned for more training talks on here. Really appreciate all your support. Shout out to title sponsor Hoka. Keeping the dream alive. Got personal vlogs and training and racing updates for you and exciting events. So really do appreciate all the likes and subscriptions, keeping this channel alive. So let me know how you're doing in the comments below. Big goals, what your thoughts are on this training talk or what you'd like to see in the future. Check out our training plans at higherrunning.com. Coach Sandy and I sell training plans for any service, any distance. Again, check out her channel, Running Wild. And yeah, again, really appreciate your support, the Patreon supporters, for keeping this channel going. And stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.